All right, good morning, folks. Today is Monday, January 27th, 2025. I'm Anthony. This is Drive Dive. So really quickly, this video will be about checking your identity, adjusting what counts, and adjusting your routines. So before I get into it, I wanted to give a quick shout out to folks like Orion, Michael Nicholas, and Proud Sig, 3 users out there who checked out my content, left comments. I appreciate the encouragement, the feedback, to keep going and try to take this thing seriously. So with that, I guess adjusting your identity, right? Reflecting on the weekend. I've shared before, I identify as a husband, a father, a teacher, some of the other hats I wear, right? I'm an Amazon product reviewer, guess I'm a YouTuber, right? And so I think we need to establish those things first for ourselves before we can then consider like what counts, right? By that I mean what counts as being productive. If the things that we're doing don't match up with our identity or identities, well, that's where we run into problems, run into trouble, start getting down on ourselves and questioning whether or not we're being productive. And so for me, thinking about the weekend, again, I stated how I identify. I had an opportunity to spend some time with my son and play in a Disney Lorcana trading card game tournament. So while that is hours of time, I guess traveling to the tournament for us is about a 35-40 minute drive, and then you spend at least like 5 hours at the tournament and then some time driving home. And you might say, oh well, because of all that time I didn't get to do this, I didn't get to do that. And so sure, while that may be true, the fact that I spent time with my son and got to be a good father, be a good role model, and also create opportunities for him to hone some of his skills specific to the Disney Lorcana game and getting better as a competitor there, which, by the way, he's really good. Last week he came in 7th, and just this past weekend he came in 9th. Out of 20 players, people have been doing it for a very long time. They've been doing these types of tournaments for 20 plus years, much longer than he's been alive, half as long as I've been alive. And for him to do that well is just incredible. But so creating opportunities for him to also develop his softer skills, I think of organization, making sure we've packed snacks and water and we're good to go, we're prepared for the day, but also just overhearing him engage with the other participants. And again, these are adults. He's able to just connect and relate and share. And so big time commitment, but served my role, my identity, right, as a caring, loving father, and also sure my identity as maybe likewise a trading card game competitor, possibly. It's one I struggle with. I don't know how competitive I actually am, whether or not I should say I'm a competitor, but anyway, if you're gonna do it, or something like that. But so there's that. And then yesterday, I guess I played in another tournament by myself. But before going, I tried to make it a point to do a couple of little things around the house to, I guess it's my role as a father, but I really had my wife in mind when I was doing these things and trying to be a good or better husband. And so I made it a point to fold some laundry, wash dishes. I took out the compost. All these little things that sometimes they don't take very long, which is also maybe a reason why I have a tendency to just kind of put them off, like, oh, I'll do it later, and dismiss it. But then again, this struggle I think that we're talking about of being productive, if that's the goal, if we identify as productive, and then the other in general, and then the other specific roles, I mean, we have to take the time to do those little things. So, just kind of proud of myself, I think, for doing that, for doing those little things. Additionally, I guess the third thing is adjusting some of your routines, and I don't even know if it's adjusting the routines or tweaking like what happens within those routines. So what I mean by that is, I know in a previous video I had said something to the effect of sitting in the couch versus sitting at my desk when I go down to the basement, right? Everyone else is in bed. I have maybe a couple of hours to myself before I need to get to bed and get my 6 hours of sleep. So what do I do with that time? Oftentimes I'll sit at the couch, turn on the TV, and get lost in that, or I'll open up my computer and maybe play a game or something and get lost in that. But I need to grade papers, right? So it's oftentimes better for me to, I'm not really adjusting my routine, right? I'm not going to the basement. I'm not taking that 2 hours to myself. It's just adjusting that slightly, some of the details, instead of sitting at the couch, sit at the desk. And then there are different tasks that I can accomplish at the desk that maybe wouldn't cause me to, get lost, right? And not be productive, not do the things that would serve my identity. So I realized that this morning as well, actually. I'll get my breakfast ready, I'll sit down at the table, and I'll get on my phone, which, given the multitude of things we can do on our phones, we can quickly get lost in things and just not be productive, not serve our identity. And so I said, well, shoot, like I don't have to adjust that. I don't have to put the phone down, but let's remind myself what is it that I could be doing on my phone right now that would serve my identity, that would make me feel more productive. And so I mentioned at the onset, I identify as an Amazon product reviewer. I'm like, this is a perfect time. Just take 5 minutes to write a review. Click on some stars, give some honest thoughts about it, quick little title, and submit. I also took the time this morning to reply. I had replied previously the three comments I mentioned from Michael Nicholas, Orion, and Prod Sig. I'd replied previously to the Michael Nicholas comments that I received prior, and over the weekend, Orion and Prod Sig. I replied to those two this morning. So again, not adjusting my routine, not saying, oh, it's bad to pick up the phone. But when I pick up the phone, what are some identity aligned and therefore productive activities that I can engage in? And so for me, that was, rather than scrolling through, I'll call it my Google News feed and catching up on headlines, I wrote an Amazon product review and replied to 2 comments I received on my YouTube channel, right? Aligned with my identities of being a product reviewer and a YouTuber. And any of that headline stuff, I am sure there is a podcast or a radio show I could easily listen to while I'm driving, right? And just as a reminder, that was the impetus for this whole YouTube channel, these videos. How can I make my drive, my 45, 60-minute drive to and from, right, nearly 2 hours of time in the car, a bit more productive. So there you have it, folks. There's me, my identity, some of the activities I'm engaged in aligned with those identities to feel more productive, and a couple minor tweaks I've been trying to make to my routines to just make all of that happen. Please give us a like, a comment. I will get back to you. I love the engagement. Hit the notification bell, and yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Happy Monday. All right, good morning, everyone out there. This is Anthony. It's Tuesday, January 28th. Again, I'm Anthony, and this is Drive Time. So, one quick update is I finally upgraded my phone. I was operating on a Samsung Galaxy Note 10. I just upgraded to the S24 Ultra. I'm not sure if you can see a difference in the video quality or not, but I don't know, it's fun, exciting for me. Nice, much needed upgrade. And today, I guess the top video topic here is just a general theme that perfection is the enemy of progress, right? Or said differently, I think great is the enemy of good, or something to that effect. And so, I think the reason I wanted to talk about that is I mentioned in a previous video that I did get some comments from a few viewers out there, and one was from Prod Sig, who said he liked the videos and I'm easy to listen to, and felt that if I really wanted to take this YouTube thing seriously, I should maybe consider hiring an editor. And then I had another user by the name of Orion comment, "Hey man, love the stream of consciousness, love that you just hit record, minimal editing, like for real, you know, keep it up," sort of thing. And so those two things are, while maybe conflicting, I first and foremost much appreciated, and I do find very encouraging, right? The two compliments there. I'm reminded of the fact, a couple of things, right? Those two sayings I mentioned here, that one general perception that you know, perfection is the enemy of progress. And that was something to consider when starting this YouTube video or channel. Is, well, yeah, how do you make thumbnails, and how do you edit? What kind of software do I need? What kind of hardware do I need? What's my setup going to look like? How long should the videos be? What are people watching? What are interesting topics, right? And the more you think, the less you do. And so, yeah, that's kind of been my MO. I'm just going to, you know, turn on the camera, hit record, and say what I'm going to say. I think about it a little bit, but ultimately just kind of go. And the other thing, I guess, is from James Cleary's book, Atomic Habits. In discussing habit formation, in discussing identity, he just kind of shares that just the more you do, the stronger the habit, the stronger your identity. He says the more votes you're casting for that particular identity. And ultimately that, he makes the analogy of working out, or the example of working out. Skipping one workout is fine, but then skipping two workouts in a row now establishes a bit more of a pattern, and now is casting a vote for the identity of a person who perhaps doesn't work out, the identity of a person who skips workouts, the identity of a person who finds maybe too many excuses to skip a workout. And so I do think that while there is a sort of quality versus quantity debate, I think that in terms of the identity formation and habit, ritual, routine building and sticking, that ultimately just hitting record and creating the video is more important than worrying about the editing and the thumbnails and the descriptions and the tags and the is the footage. There's all kinds of questions when you're on YouTube and selecting the language and subtitles, and there's all of these different settings. Yes, there's a lot to get into, end screens, and how do I promote this video? Posting it on Twitter, or now X, right? Do I put it on my LinkedIn page? Does this quite rise to the level of professionalism, right? Yes, I have all of these questions, and I would like to do them perfectly, but trying to figure out how it all fits, I just don't have the time for those things. And that reminds me of another piece that I guess maybe should have mentioned in the intro, right? Again, this idea of perfection and stream of consciousness, just go with it. In James Cleary's book, again, Atomic Habits, he discusses, I guess ultimately, right, if you want to be productive, if you want to be successful, you do have to take a look at sort of your own traits, your own abilities, your own constraints, and you kind of have to pick something within your wheelhouse, is me paraphrasing. The examples that he uses, he compares two professional athletes, and he even says this in his book, like Michael Phelps, a really well-known athlete, and then he also names a sprinter who perhaps, I don't know the sprinter's name, but he says is not as well known of an athlete. They're both Olympic, world-renowned, I guess world-renowned, right? But both Olympic athletes, excellent in their fields. But if they were to swap, well, even though they're both physically gifted, highly athletic, there's no way the sprinter would do well as a swimmer. No way the swimmer would do well as the sprinter. They have different body types. They're not made for the sport, for those specific events. So he says that you really should think about, again, your traits, your qualities, and you have to pick something that, I think he talks about genetics and their DNA, right, and its role in choosing these things, and it's so true. But I would say more than DNA, I mentioned like your constraints, and I'm thinking of time constraints. If it were my goal, if I really needed this perfect version of a YouTube channel, I wouldn't be able to do it because of the time constraints. I can't consistently sit down and edit. I can't consistently sit down and create thumbnails. I might be able to do it sporadically, but it's not worth the daily stress and headaches of then reminding myself that, oh, you weren't able to find the time, and having this negative voice creep in of, Anthony, you're not good enough, and Anthony, you couldn't find the time. It's so simple to create a thumbnail, like why couldn't you figure it out? And instead, trying to be more of a positive person, productive, optimistic, right? Have that kind of be my identity, and I'm able to just say, hey, you know what? Like you put a video out, right? This week you went short week 4 for 4. This week you went 5 for 5, right? And then on the weekends I started experimenting with these shorter videos that I make during the week. Like let's just string them all together, and now I have a sort of maybe around an hour mark video. Get to experiment a little bit and see how the YouTube audience digest some of that content, click on it, not click on it, based on maybe the length. So you just have to do it. And thinking about the time constraints and things, I mean, for me, I'll share that one of the things that I suppose I failed at, right, or just wasn't able to accomplish, was writing my literature review. I did enroll in, and I was in for a number of years, was active in a PhD program in mathematics education at Montclair State University, and finished all the coursework, but ultimately wasn't able to finish the literature review. Wrote a couple drafts, got some feedback, but wasn't able to do it on a consistent enough basis. Maybe didn't identify strongly enough as a doctor, as someone with a PhD. And for me, the goals, it wasn't even really clear like what I intended to do with it. It was motivated by status, I think. I really just wanted to kind of have that out there so that professionally I'd be a stronger candidate for some top positions within a school district. So maybe, I certainly gained a lot. Was I doing it for the right reasons? Did I identify strongly enough? But I couldn't carve out the time. And so my DNA or my personal constraints and things just weren't conducive to being successful in that particular area. And rather than beat my head against the wall, trying to get that done, and again have that negative voice creep in all the time, my committee and I kind of just decided, like, let's just stop. So with a year, anyway, it's a longer story, but the point is, you have to just do, and you have to think about what you can and can't do, how that marries with or merges with, meshes with your identity, the identity that you want to form. Build those habits, build those routines. Don't worry about perfection. Just get down to business. Be productive. So that's it for me. I appreciate you watching. Give us a like, subscribe, take 30 seconds, comment down below, share your thoughts, some of your struggles, time constraints, this idea of DNA, identity formation, etc. And yeah, make it a good one. Catch you tomorrow. All right, good morning. It is Wednesday, January 29th, 2025. I'm Anthony. This is Drive Time. So today is a bit of a continuation of yesterday's, where I want to talk a little bit about capacity and matching your goals with your capacity, with your sort of DNA or your constraints. And then I'll get a little personal about how I think I can accomplish an old goal that I stopped working on because I didn't think it fit with my capacities and capabilities. So, with that, yesterday I spoke about, in James Cleary's book, how he talks about two different athletes, Michael Phelps and another sprinter, both world-class athletes, physically gifted, but that they, while highly successful in their own events, take one out of the pool, put the other one in, and they would not be nearly as competitive, if competitive at all. So that got me thinking about my earlier goal. I shared I was a PhD candidate in mathematics education program. I completed the coursework. I'm working on my literature review. And yes, right, I was trying to do it, I guess, in the typical fashion of some reading of research articles and sitting and writing and trying to synthesize. And I guess I was writing in a way that I guess was very first person-y and not sticking to the literature and just not in the format and language and expected voice, I guess, of a traditional literature review. I was doing it in such a way that required a lot of seat time, a lot of quiet time, right? Thinking, just picture yourself, sitting at a desk and either looking at computer screens or paper printouts of documents and then a Word file, trying to type out your thoughts and synthesize all this information. So very, very traditional type stuff. But just as I was going between employers, as my children were born, as COVID occurred, and I just wasn't, right, my capacities, my constraints were such that, finding what I thought I needed and still think I might, that the chunks of uninterrupted focused time that I felt were required, I just couldn't come up with on a consistent enough basis. And it really reflected on systems and goals and habits and routines. Right? Having this lofty goal of earning a PhD isn't enough. Just having the goal isn't enough. We do have to have these systems in place, these habits, these routines. And I don't know if I think maybe by system, I don't know if I had those capacities. I think the constraints on my time were such that it just wasn't possible. That, or I wasn't forming those habits and those routines often enough. I do recall times throughout my graduate studies where end of the semester's approaching, deadlines, I got to get a paper written, and it's always at 11th hour, and I stop and think, well, you just binge watched, an entire season of, I think at the time, honestly, it might have been something like Marvel's Daredevil, and you didn't need to do that. Right, and that's kind of been one of my struggles. Is I mentioned before, sitting down on the couch, and what happens? You turn on the TV, and time's just gone, wasted. And so now, thinking about some of the habits and routines that I've established now, right, these past few weeks, I'm wondering if it's possible, just as I've over and over said, here's what I've read in James Cleary's book, here's what James Cleary teaches us in Atomic Habits, effectively what I'm doing is I'm citing literature. James Cleary has cited the research. Now I'm citing James Cleary in a sense, and not using first person. I don't think talking about James Cleary's teaching and providing specific examples in which they are applicable. And I think that's what a literature review is about. So I'm wondering if after this video I stop recording and then start recording another one where I'm just kind of talk about the literature. I'm thinking about my own skills, my own capabilities and DNA, so to speak. No, right? I'm not, what did he say, like 6'4", like Michael Phelps. I don't have like a shorter lower body and a longer torso, wider back. I don't have those physical traits to be an Olympic swimmer. But I do have this capacity to get thoughts from my brain out of my mouth and onto video. I don't always have that capacity to get those same thoughts through to my fingertips, to the keyboard, and in a Word document, but I do have this capability. During my graduate studies, I did realize that I kind of had a knack for, or didn't mind, helping professors with transcription activities. They would share a video file, and I would transcribe, okay, this person said this, that person said that, and even going back through, I don't know, 5-10 second portions. Was that an or an And really getting to that level of detail when I was doing this transcription work. Again, I'm recognizing the skills, the capacities that I do possess, that while I wasn't able to get it done, get my literature review done in that traditional sense, chunks of time, dedicated time, quiet time, handwriting or typing my thoughts, maybe I could do it in this format. First, get my thoughts out of my mouth onto camera, onto film, and then sit down and transcribe those thoughts. Once transcribed, I think another skill I have is editing. The number of times I've sat and read an article, read a book, and thought, oh, that's not the right version of the word right there, or they left an S off, or you know what, maybe I don't think that's the best way to word it. I don't think that's as precise or exact as the author could have been. And so I'm wondering if I can pick that thing back up, pick that literature review back up. And I had experimented at some point with even research articles, like not even sitting and reading them, but using an app called @Voice, right? The @ symbol and the word voice, in a very computerized, mechanically, voice. It would read the PDF file, and so that's essentially right what I was doing with James Cleary, listening to the audiobook, reflecting on his thoughts, what it meant in my own life, and sharing it out in video. Maybe I can do the same thing with the literature review. So that's what I'm thinking. Right, so larger picture, it's definitely about matching your goals with your capacities, with your skills, reflecting on those capacities, reflecting on those skills, being very real, open, honest, not necessarily limiting, right? I know that, like I said, trying to think solely about time and the constraints that I have, I wasn't able to get my literature review done in that traditional sense as I described. I don't think I'd be able to do that today either. But if I retool it and maybe can create different systems, different habits and routines, maybe I can get it done in a different way. I can still have that lofty goal. I don't think I quite have that skill being a writer and sitting down and getting my thoughts down into written word, but maybe I'm better able to, with the spoken word, as I say, and stumble a little bit there, but and that would be something I think to connect back to this literature review, right? James Cleary would call it habit stacking. I've already formed this habit of recording a video about productivity, and I can say to myself, okay, once I complete that task, now I'll engage in this task of recording a video that pertains to the research on coordinate systems in mathematics education. So there you have it. Some habit stacking, some productivity tips, some matching of goals with capabilities and skills. Yeah, something for you to think about. What are you trying to accomplish? Does it match your skills? Does it match your routines? If it doesn't match your routines, right, how else can we accomplish the goal? Maybe our habits, our skills can be used in different ways to accomplish that same goal. A little optimism, right? So, with that, please give us a like, subscribe, share the channel with a friend, take 30 seconds, comment down below. It does help keep me motivated. I enjoy replying to your comments, referring to them in future videos. So yeah, please take care of that for me. And yeah, make it a good one. Happy Wednesday. See you tomorrow. All right, good morning. It is Thursday, January 30th, 2025. I'm Anthony. This is Drive Dive. So thinking about today and what I'd like to say, I came across the idea of just sharing, right, how to be more productive by being honest with yourself, discovering yourself and your identity. What do you want? I guess where this came from, as I was thinking quickly these past 5 minutes, is I'm in therapy. I've been going to see a therapist for a couple of months now, and one of the things we spoke about was this notion that myself as an adult, as I was maturing, as I've continued to mature, I've never really stopped to think about what it is that I want for myself. Growing up, you don't get to pick your parents. You don't pick where you live. You don't pick where you go to school. A lot of things happen to you by default. They happen to you based on the decisions that other people make. And if you don't stop to then think about whether these decisions made by others for you, are right, are wrong, if they are supporting the vision of yourself that you have for yourself, I don't know, maybe you get into some trouble, or what you then end up doing and what your real identity is, I don't know, they just don't mesh, right? They're in constant conflict. And so that's kind of been my journey a little bit. I think that growing up, some hardship, I'd always just kind of had to make things work. I mean, even talking about my PhD program, I haven't yet shared, but that came about as a result of me being unemployed. I had left a teaching position, took on an admin role in a district where after 1 year they cut the position, and I was out of a job. I think that hit me pretty hard, where I was getting interviews and things after the fact. I think I had my boss was pretty well connected. I think helped me get a number of interviews, but my head just wasn't right. It was just spinning. I was angry. I was upset. I always worked, right, since I was old enough to. McDonald's, Outback Steakhouse, teaching, and then to be unemployed and not able to have my desired job, in education. I botched so many interviews, and I don't think I had ever really thought about the interview process and how to answer specific questions and things of that nature. But anyhow, that was a very tough time for me. But getting involved in a PhD role, or in a PhD program, was, again, one of those things sort of by default. that it was an available option. Okay, all else fails, nothing else going on. Like, yeah, sure, let's get involved in this program. Let's get sort of paid to go to school, work for the doctoral program, and volunteer for the professors and whatnot, and get paid a few thousand dollars, very few, maybe like I think it was like $10,000 or something. And okay, that's what I'm gonna do. And then I did land a teaching role the very following fall, only unemployed basically for the summer. But then I kept the PhD program. Again, I feel like I got a lot out of it. I think that it did ultimately support a lot of what I wanted to do in education. But again, my identity, I think, is being an educator, not necessarily a research professor, which is what a PhD would help me become, help me be. And so, while I still go back and forth on whether or not I should allocate the time, make the additional sacrifices to pursue that PhD or finish the literature review and such, I'm still wrestling with that. Is that part of my identity? Is that part of who I am, who I want to be? And those are the decisions that I have to make. And so, talking with my students, reflecting on some of their behaviors, I think when I see students struggle, and I suspect that maybe it's because they are not supported at home, to put it mildly or lightly, or maybe they're involved with some not so great friends. I often find myself telling those students that, well, when you're older, you will get to pick your family. You'll get to pick who's around you, who's in your inner circle, and this idea that, well, you can't change the people who are around you, but you can change the people you're around, sort of thing. Some of your different hobbies, habits, routines. Even talk with my honors level kids who presumably are have more of those resources, more of that support in their lives and their homes, which is a shame, right? That stereotypical whatever that exists, right? The system is such that by and large, the majority of students in your lower level courses are the ones you don't have the support at home, and then the kids who are in your upper level courses are the ones that do have the support. But that's neither here nor there, I guess. But reflecting on some of their behavior, to see them walking in as we're about to take a test, and they're on their phones. Literally just the other day, kids are talking about yesterday's parlays, right? These are high school freshmen, and they're talking about sports betting, which is, right, one thing, but it's also, right, that's not supporting you in doing well on this test. So how do you identify, right? Do you identify as a professional sports gambler? Do you identify as a earning honors level, right, high school geometry student? How do you identify? And so trying to impress upon them, those sorts of things. It's interesting, but I don't know that at the age of 15 that they're stopping to think about their identity and such. Should they? I do think that all of that has a place. Talking about some of the school initiatives, I will just say SEL is what we, the bucket that all of those things sort of fit into, the social emotional learning, that is, or character development things. But those are also practices I think that adults need to engage in as well. What is it that we want for ourselves? What do we want? How do we want to treat ourselves? How do we want other people to treat us? What are we looking for in specific relationships? And so I do find myself having those conversations with my family members. That I am able to talk to my son about the things I see him doing, notice him doing. Right? Are they good? Are they bad? Could they be improved? Do I appreciate them? Hey, what do you need from me? Right? Trying to encourage him even to think about the relationship that he has with me, what he might need more of, or perhaps less of at times. And I'll say now that with therapy and things, really having those conversations with myself and sharing a little bit about that journey with all of you in these videos, how to be more productive. What are some of the things that am I trying to do too much? And of the things that I'm trying to do, which ones, like really aren't supporting my identity, desired identity, and therefore should just get cut out anyway. Lighten my load a little bit and then allow me to focus on some of the other things that are a bit more important, right? Starting to have those conversations with my wife now, right? As our relationship evolves and the demands on our time with family, right? With young kids, with job responsibilities, you know, for us to stop and have those conversations and say, hey, you know, what's our identity? You know, what do we want in our relationship? What's maybe missing, or you know, what could we use more of? Types of conversations. So I think that communication, right? Internal communication is understanding who you are, your identity, your desired identity, those of the people around you as well, how they can help and how you can help them and support one another, right? I think all of these are important conversations to have with ourselves, with our loved ones, and ultimately it can lead to being more productive, which honestly, you know, I keep saying it, be more productive. You know, I think it's just being, I don't know, feeling healthier, feeling happier, you know, about ourselves and you know, what we're accomplishing, right? What we're doing with our lives, how we're spending our time, and ultimately, I think, right, supporting that identity when the things that we're doing don't support that identity. I think that's what leaves us feeling empty, feeling unproductive. So that's really what it's about, I think, is shoring up who am I, who do I want to be, and what is it that I can do to get closer to that desired identity, that desired self. So I don't know, have those conversations, have those reflections, and ultimately, you know, yeah, that's it. Have those conversations, communicate with yourself, establish your identity, figure out who it is you want to be, what you want in life, get after it. So that's it for me. Happy Thursday. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you tomorrow. All right, good morning. It is Friday, January 31st, 2025. I'm Anthony. This is Drive Dive. And yeah, that's right, it's Friday, where I guess I want to try to just recap what I've gone through this week, both in my life and in these videos, some of the teachings and summaries, all that fun stuff. So, I guess the gist of it is, right, from James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, really all of this, right, goals, systems, and habits, routines, and then ultimately your identity, which I think is really the foundation or the core of it all, where what you do has to align with your identity, and your goals have to match who you are and your inherent skills, traits, abilities, etc. Thinking of some of the examples that James provides in his book, again, about athletes and their respective sports, and you could be a world-class athlete in one particular event but flounder in another. Ultimately, I'm thinking, right, if you identify as someone who is athletic, as an athletic person, your habits and routines need to reflect what an ideally athletic person does. And then the actual goal, I guess, depends on, again, your specific traits, more finely tuned abilities, physical attributes, etc. One of the things I struggle with was my goal, yes, a lofty goal of earning my PhD. I think, as I shared, you know, yes, I kind of stumbled into it, this and that, you know, but that was, I think, aligned with my identity as a productive, intelligent, this is mathematics education, so, you know, mathematically inclined person. And I'm telling myself now that I think there are just, if that was the goal and that was me wanting to be a smart person, there are other ways to demonstrate my intelligence. There are other ways to be smart. I can figure those things out and create a different goal while still just generally doing things that smart, intelligent, mathematically inclined people do. I think I shared about habit stacking, and maybe it's possible I can still accomplish that goal, but in a different way. I have to use different traits, different attributes, right? I do have this fear of selling myself short, right? And that's not what it's about. Okay, it's not about selling yourself short. It's not about saying, well, I'm not tall enough, so I'll never play in the NBA, which is true. But it's not about selling yourself short, right? Okay, I might not get to the NBA, but I can still be an athletic person. I can still train really hard. I can still use my gifts as an athlete in other ways. Maybe it's running marathons. Maybe it's in natural bodybuilding competitions. Maybe it's paired with some other abilities and interests. Maybe it's coaching youth sports and things of that nature. You can still do a lot of great things that align with your identity as an athlete, your abilities as an athlete, and you would, like I said, build those habits, those routines that would support all of that. So I think, again, that's what I've been struggling with, this whole PhD thing. Am I selling myself short by not accomplishing it? Or is it really just not aligned? That goal isn't truly aligned with my identity, right? Still working that out. But the other piece, in terms of identity formation, my reflection, I think, on the Atomic Habits book, a lot of it is focused on the self, my own identity, my own habits, routines, my own goals. But I think if you extrapolate that out and sort of apply it to relationships, now you can start getting into communication. And now, not just what do I do as a partner, but like, what do we do in our relationship? Husband, wife, father, son. What are some things what are our roles within, those relationships? You can have those open conversations. What can we reasonably expect from one another? What do we need from one another? And you can then talk about sort of the identity, I guess, of your relationship. It also makes me think about, if you apply it to the workplace, I think then you're talking about leadership, and you're talking about workplace culture. What do we do as an organization? What don't we do as an organization? And that was sort of a leadership principle I recall, was it's important to share what you stand for, but also share what you don't stand for, right? So I think there's a lot of, at the base of it all, identity formation as individuals, as couples, as groups, cultures. So there's a lot there to think about. But ultimately, successful week for me. I did manage to go 5 for 5. I had this weird stint last night, or the night before, where I think I mistakenly forgot to upload a video. So then I uploaded like 2 or 3 last night, between last night and this morning, something to that effect. Which just reminds me of, the last James Cleary sort of teaching I'll share is, it's okay to miss one. Don't miss 2 in a row. Anyway, with that, happy Friday. Thanks for watching. See what the weekend brings. But yeah, make it a great one. Take care.